Good morning, everyone. I am on Bitchute. I am also still looking for other alternatives, but I've set it up so that Bitchute will pull from YouTube, so it'll happen automatically, and I've played with the upload interface, and it's better than I remember it. It's still not great, but it's not as terrible as I remember it. So I am on Bitchute. Link is in the description, and well, thank you for pushing me to look into this further and come back to this one. And Brighteon, I think, or Brighteon, they're associated with Patreon. I've got my application into stream on there as well, so I'll be around even if YouTube doesn't want me to be, so yay. And also I'll be on CanadaPoly.com, so just in case you do lose track of me, I'm always posting there, and I will continue to post there regardless of which media is putting me out, whether it's Bitchute or YouTube or Minds or whatever. So thank you for watching, everyone. Okay, so here is the Ministry of Silly Walks. Have you seen Monty Python? Some people love Monty Python, some people hate Monty Python, but Monty Python was really, really good at pointing out the absurdity of government and of British life back when British life was hilariously absurd. And this is hilarious. This is ridiculously funny. Go and have a watch. His rhyming off of what the government, like here he talks about how the government could possibly, this guy's coming in to ask for a government loan to develop a silly walk, and he's thinking about developing it, and he's talking about all of the competition they're facing. The Iranians, what the Iranians can do with their silly walks. It's hilarious. And why am I telling you about silly walks? Here is our new cabinet minister. And cabinet ministers come with staffing. They come with an elevated salary. So a regular MP makes $160,000 a year-ish. And I think it's like 168 maybe. And if you're a cabinet minister, you get an elevated salary, usually more than double, right? 240, 250, 260. And then you get a staff and an office, as well as potentially, if you're a big minister, you might get a driver and maybe security. Miss McKenna had security because of threats that she was receiving. So says Miss McKenna. And the papers as well, so on. But here is the minister. Well, I'll just let the meme say it. Meet Trudeau's new cabinet. This is Mona Fortier. Trudeau just appointed her as his Minister of Middle Class Prosperity. Fortier will now receive $264,000 a year, or 4 times the salary of the middle class that she represents. 2 days into the job, reporters asked Fortier to explain what exactly she does in her role. Not only could she not provide an answer, she couldn't even define what the middle class is. Trudeau's second term will be more of the same. Empty buzzwords that do nothing to help the middle class or make life more affordable. Pass this on to expose the absurdity of this government. Ah, yes, the Ministry of Silly Walks. And here is the Minister of Middle Class Prosperity, according to the Globe and Mail, declining to provide a clear definition of the middle class. And I've seen a couple of interviews with her, and the liberal tap dance is such that, and when I say the liberal tap dance, it's when you get asked a question, you start to tell a story because the question is asking for a story. Usually people aren't satisfied with a yes or no, and especially with, can you define the middle class? This minister, this government is good at PR. I mean, Miss McKenna said it very clearly. If you get your talking point, if you repeat it, if you say it louder, people will totally believe you. And fundamentally, if you tell a good story as well, people will believe you. They'll believe that you understand what's going on. They'll believe you encapsulate the whole thing. So the stories being told don't answer the questions. And this is the first time I've seen the Canadian media upset by that, but that's what happens. So she tells stories. Here it is. Canada's first ever Minister of Middle Class Prosperity declined to provide a clear definition of the middle class, but she said having kids enrolled in hockey is a telltale sign. If you get up around 5:30 for hockey, that's a sign you're part of the middle class. If you have to cook dinner, that's a sign of you're in the middle class. If you have to stop by Swiss Chalet on the way home or Walmart to get a chicken that looks like Swiss Chalet, you're part of the middle class, right? Because you're not having Jeffrey do that. Jeffrey's the butler from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You're not having him, right? You're doing it. You're part of the middle class. But how much does that, what does that mean, right? She can't define it. Doesn't know. Hockey's a telltale sign, though. Okay, back to the article. Ottawa Vanier MP Mona Fortier was elevated to cabinet Wednesday with the new position of Minister of Middle Class Prosperity and Associate Minister of Finance. Oh, good. The middle class prosperity isn't enough. You've got to be the Associate Minister of Will Ferrell lookalike Bill Morneau at Finance. Okay, back to the article. The title did not come with an immediate job description. You'd think you'd have an idea of what you want them to do. Back to the article. Miss Fortier appeared on several radio programs Friday to discuss her new role and the government's agenda, with the caveat that she had not yet been fully briefed by officials. She promptly faced the same questions that had dogged her cabinet colleagues over the past 4 years. What is the middle class? Quote, I define the middle class where people feel that they can afford their way of life, she told CBC Radio's The Current. They have a quality of life and they can have, send their kids to play hockey or even have different activities. It's having the cost of living where you can do what you want with your families. Ms. Fortier deflected repeated requests to precisely define the middle class, largely a political term that has no agreed upon definition in economic circles. The Trudeau government frequently invokes the expression but refuses to define it. Finance Minister Bill Morneau has faced the question countless times in committee meetings. The closest he came to a clear answer was during a 2016 Senate committee discussion when he said it roughly applies to Canadians who earn between $45,000 and $140,000. He also said there are multiple ways to define middle class and that the definitions are complicated by a number of income earners and the number of children in the households. Right, so if you have a single parent who's earning $60,000 with one child, that's middle class. But if the same single parent earning $60,000 has 3 children from divorce or death or some other tragedy, that's no longer middle class. And I can see there's a sliding scale. Sure, you could possibly define it that way. It can't always come down just to how much people are making. We do live in a society where there is a vast difference. Even if you have 2 people making $60,000, $50,000, $40,000 together, that's a lot more money, right? So a single income is going to struggle a lot more, period. And that bears noting, but it's really interesting that instead of having that clearly set out, like here's how we're looking at this and this is how we think about this, etc. They're kind of throwing darts at a dartboard saying, yeah, if your kids play hockey, that's middle class, right? It feels like the last 4 years. It feels like these guys don't know what they're doing. And yeah, that's kind of been the feeling. Our government really kind of is walking around with a bag on its head, kind of feeling its way for success. And then the other governments around the world that actually know what they're doing get frustrated with us as Canada is lumbering around, blundering around, focusing on silly walks, right? And not defining clearly what the job is that you want somebody to do when you ask them to take a job. It seems really, really amateur. Right? Like take the 5 minutes, take the 10 minutes, bat it around with your people when you create the ministry. Otherwise, why are you creating the ministry? Amateur Hour continues in Ottawa. Here's China, and this is published 2 days ago. And not that I missed this, but this was on my list, and I was cleaning out my list and fell through the cracks. Anyway, I think it's important to note. China warns Canada against efforts to impose sanctions on Hong Kong officials. China's new ambassador to Canada is warning that any effort by Ottawa to emulate the U.S. legislation that paves way for sanctions against Hong Kong officials will seriously hurt Canada-China relations. Quote, if anything happens like this, we will certainly have very bad damage in our bilateral relationship, and that is not in the interest of Canada. Envoy Kong Pew told reporters at his first major interview with Canadian media. Sorry if I got your name wrong, sir. He later added, quote, we are firmly opposed to any foreign interference. This week, the U.S. Congress passed legislation to back protesters in Hong Kong and threaten China with possible sanctions, while sources told Reuters that U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to sign into law in coming days. So China's saying, don't you dare emulate that law. That would not go well for you. And China has a lot of power, billions of dollars of leverage. The soy, the pork, the beef, lots and lots of exports go to China. It's our second biggest trading partner. So they have a lot of leverage, and they're telling us very clearly. I wonder if our leadership will listen. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Two last stories here, and I think I'm right on time. We're not a 20-minute video yet. Okay, so the Globe and Mail is reporting Andrew Scheer fires top aides as he tries to hold on to Tory leadership. Now, I'm biased, and I ran for the People's Party of Canada in the last election, but I want to point out that the CPC, the Conservative Party of Canada, hasn't changed their leadership review at all. Like, the leadership review is the same that it's always been since before this election, before the 2019 election. So they were always going to review the leadership at the time they're going to review it. And I can't see this as a bid to hold on to his leadership. I mean, he's either going to hold on. I think at this point he's holding on to the leadership. At the very least, they're waiting until the convention to get rid of him if they're going to toss him. And the speculation in the press is not inappropriate, but I don't think it's based in anything other than the press wanting to keep the right off its feet, right? And not to say that Scheer's the best leader. I don't necessarily think that at all. I think that he lost a winnable election personally. But all of that said, I don't think the conservatives think that. So I don't know. Anyway, here's the Globe and Mail reporting this. Andrew Scheer has fired 2 top aides a month after the Conservatives lost an election they were expecting to win. Chief of Staff Marc-Andre Leclerc and Director of Communications Brock Harrison were both fired effective immediately, according to an email sent by Mr. Scheer to staff and the Conservative caucus and obtained by the Globe and Mail. Quote, following the election results, as we gear up to hold Justin Trudeau to account in this new minority parliament, I felt it was important to make changes at the office of the leader of the official opposition, Mr. Scheer wrote. I would like to thank Marc-Andre and Brock for their service to our team and to our movement over the past number of years. These decisions are never easy, especially when they invoke friends. I wish them nothing but the best in all of their future endeavors. Mr. Leclerc said he is retiring from federal politics after 10 years working with the Conservatives. Quote, the results of October 21st are not what I expected, he said in a statement, but they do not reflect all the efforts our team made before and during the campaign. And I scroll down. Conservatives will vote on the future of Mr. Scheer's leadership at their April convention in Toronto. So that hasn't changed. And here's the last bit. It says the first sign the Conservative leader might change his communication team came early in November following the party's first caucus meeting since the election loss. Speaking to reporters, Mr. Scheer said the policies that he was presenting during the campaign weren't the problem, but how they were communicated was. Quote, there were times when our message didn't resonate with Canadians. That's clear, Mr. Scheer said on November 6. Mr. Harrison joined the leader's office in 2018. He previously worked in Alberta as director of communications for the Wild Rose Party, led by Daniel Smith. And I mean, a change of communication team doesn't necessarily indicate a change in leadership to me. And the reason I didn't read a lot of this middle of the article was it's a whole bunch of speculation based in nothing that I could figure out other than speculation. So maybe it's worthwhile speculation. Maybe it's great political insight, but I just didn't see it, so I skipped it. But the link is in the description if you want to read it. Here's CTV News in the last little bit of Amateur Hour in Ottawa. Continuing is new shutdown to put thousands of BC loggers out of work Monday. Vancouver Island forestry sector is about to suffer another blow as forest management company Mosaic plans to temporarily shutter its logging operations. In a statement released Thursday, the company said harvesting operations will cease on Monday, November 25th, a move that will impact roughly 2,000 workers. Quote, we are currently experiencing very challenging pricing and market conditions, said Pam Agnew, communications manager for Mosaic Forest Management. As a result, we are shutting down earlier ahead of a usual winter shutdown. Following Mosaic's early curtailing announcement, BC Minister of Forest, Lands and Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development Doug Donaldson told CTV News the province sympathized with the company's workers. Quote, we're aware and disappointed to hear about Mosaic's decision to shut down operations ahead of their usual winter shutdown, said Donaldson in a statement. I feel for the workers, their families, and communities impacted by Mosaic's decision. I've asked ministry staff to reach out to Mosaic's human resources staff to ensure they're aware of available government resources. Mosaic Forest Management was formed by an affiliation of Island Timberlands and Timber West in 2018. The company's website says it employs people throughout Vancouver Island and coastal BC. The temporary curtailment impacts contractors, both union and non-union, approximately 2,000 people across the coast. The hit comes as BC's forestry sector is in the throes of a lengthy and devastating strike. In Port McNeill, Western Forests produced unionized workers that have been locked in a strike with their employers for 5 months. The North Island community's mayor, Gabrielle Wickstorm, recently penned an open letter to both the union and the forestry company saying that the strike was killing our communities. We are working with our customers and contractors to manage through this challenging time, said Mosaic Forest Management in its curtailing announcement. Quote, we will monitor the situation very closely. Our first priority is safety and getting everyone back to work as markets allow. And actually, I may have misspoken at the beginning of this. I thought this had something to do with one of the federal bills, but it looks like this is just a union thing. So this isn't an example of Ottawa's misstep. This is just another in the quiver of Canada losing jobs and shutting down because of bad market conditions, and not necessarily federal at this specific example. So I apologize for that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check me out on Bitchute. That's new. And yeah, have a wonderful, wonderful day.